Hello, hello, I am the Mobius strip and I am forever. I want to live in a functional, high-trust society, and I want you to as well. Today we will be talking about the left, forgiveness, and how I was wrong, I'm sorry, in the eyes of a leftist, is not something they will forgive you for. It is admission of guilt. Before we get started, let's check out a few definitions. Very quickly, game theory is an agent, which is a human being with free will or agency, choosing one of these three options while competing with another person or as a group with another group. Opening, lowering their defenses for cooperation, risking getting hurt by others because their defenses are low, but they can cooperate with others. Option 2, they're guarded. They cannot be harmed. They are practicing freedom of association to avoid dangerous or unknown people, but because they are guarded, they have the opportunity cost of not being able to cooperate with others. This is a low-trust society. Finally, you can attack. Attacking is the worst possible scenario. You've lowered your guard down and you are now attacking someone else. This means you will get hurt and the other person will get hurt. And this is a civil war. All right. Forgiveness is such an important part of a functioning society. It is not always easy, especially for children or in the cases where the crime was so egregious that forgiveness seems impossible. In our discussion today, we will assume two agents who are both adults. In our example, Agent 1 is wronged by some moderate way by Agent 2. Agent 2 is using a knife to attack while Agent 1 was open for cooperation. After this happens, a functioning society will either arrest Agent 2 if the crime is bad enough, and then all of society that watched the first instance happens goes, oh, well, Agent 2 is not in society anymore, we can trust others, we can be open for cooperation, and Agent 1 now knows that Agent 2 isn't in society, so Agent 1 can go back to cooperating with others. Or Agent 1 will no longer be open to cooperation with Agent 2 or people who behave like Agent 2 because of what happened, and the government failed Agent 1, the government failed society, and now we have a low-trust society. Forgiveness is when Agent 2 apologizes for what they did wrong and promises not to do it again. Agent 1 now has to use their better judgment to ensure that Agent 2 is not lying. But if this is determined to be true, Agent 1 can choose forgiveness, and then both Agent 1 and Agent 2 can open themselves up for cooperation, and society can function again. Sometimes, Agent 1 feels slighted by something that Agent 2 did not do. Agent 2 is berated over and over again, and Agent 1 demands forgiveness from Agent 2. A polite Agent 2 may apologize in order to simulate the apology and forgiveness from the previous slide. But what if Agent 1 was never actually slighted by Agent 2? What if Agent 2 did not do anything wrong and Agent 1 simply wanted to trick Agent 2 into apologizing, not to give them forgiveness and to continue to cooperate, but as a way to prove that Agent 2 did in fact commit the crime against Agent 1, the crime that Agent 1 is accusing Agent 2 of? This is a very simple way of explaining what was happening in the 2015 to 2024 time period that people are calling like the woke time period. And this shows the somewhat complicated game theory within game theory when it comes to apologizing and forgiveness. What I just showed you there was Agent 1 holding out their hand for cooperation, Agent 2 holding out their hand for cooperation, and Agent 2 finds out later, wait a minute, Agent 1 was not actually cooperating with me. Because that looked like I want you to apologize. I'll give you forgiveness. And Agent 2 is just hanging there and doesn't get forgiveness and apologized. In slide 1, I showed how normal apologies and forgiveness works. But within this, there is another unspoken game theory event taking place. Telling the truth. If I'm telling the truth and acting in good faith when I say, you have wronged me, and you're telling the truth when you say, I'm sorry, what I did was wrong, I will not do it again, this works. But what if Agent 1 is not telling the truth when they say, you're a racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobe, and you hurt me, you hurt my group, you hurt a different group for me. By the power of white women, I'm offended on your behalf or on their behalf. Agent 2 for about 10 years would have three options. 1. Open up for cooperation, apologizing in good faith, often to be polite and not actually believing that 1 was actually bigoted in any way, or at the very worst, it was just a joke that 10 years ago everyone thought was funny. 2. Remain defensive and ignore or avoid the person. Use your freedom of association to make it so that you saw them as little as you possibly could. And finally, you had the third option of fight. In this scenario, since we're just talking, you're not stabbing them with a knife. You are using your words to say what I said was not bigoted. Let me explain why. This is how you would quote-unquote fight. Because you're not giving an apology, you're not avoiding, this is you fighting it. Trying to prove that you are not a bigot in the woke society period of 2015 to 24, people tended to just assume, it's a white guy yelling that he's not bigoted. He's probably bigoted. People during this time believed that the horrific genocidal racism of World War II Germany, or the horrific, not necessarily genocidal, but slave-based racism of the Civil War American South was behind us. We believed that, but we also at the same time thought racism was everywhere and it was worse than ever. At the same time. So people would see that fighting as that. Here's how this would go through the lens of game theory. Let's say you have a classmate or a coworker called Agent 1 who accuses you, typically a white man, sometimes a white woman. I did see occasionally like a stereotypically successful East Asian person, but normally white guy, right? Would accuse that person of bigotry of some kind. This is disguised as opening up for cooperation and asking for forgiveness, but this is actually a thinly veiled attack. During this time, if your school's administration or your employer's HR department ever heard of this accusation, you could be in serious trouble from school or fired from your job. More often than not, no evidence at all was needed. Agent 2, out of surprise, as they were not behaving in a bigoted way, or at the very worst simply made a joke, out of politeness or out of naivete, or even out of fear as they could see what was really happening here, immediately apologizes, or opening up for cooperation and acting in good faith. If you remember in game theory, if one person is opening up for cooperation, they've lowered their guard, and the other one is attacking, the person attacking the one with the guard down hurts the other big time and wins bigly. But if you remember, reputation is a real thing. And if you do this for 10 straight years or 9 straight years, we could argue when it started. It felt like 2015, but I could be off by a couple of years. The woke now have a reputation of crying wolf. But during this time, Agent 2 opening up for cooperation and apologizing was not accepted. It was not accepted. People didn't move on. Instead, Agent 1 says to Agent 2, the apology is proof of Agent 2's crime and sin. Agent 1 was betrayed. The demand for an apology was a thinly veiled attack disguised as the hand of cooperation, often ruining lives or at the very least careers. This can actually be scaled up. I've noticed this. I hope I explained this well. It's hard to explain for some reason, but I know other people have noticed it too, so bear with me. An example is the apologies that were demanded of European countries for colonialism. European colonialism, there's the Agent 3, the woke, in this case not observer, screaming apologize. European colonialism has been largely over for so long that Europeans alive today had nothing to do with it. Of course, there are ironic exceptions to this, like the English who still control Northern Ireland. But of course, the left, the woke observer, the woke Agent 3, denies that the Irish were victims of English colonialism because the Irish are white and that's inconvenient for them. So Agent 3, the woke leftist, demands that Agent 1, which I've represented here as England, obviously had a colonial power, no one argues, still controls Northern Ireland, there it is. Agent 1, demand, apologize for colonialism, apologize. Then we have Agent 2, another European country, Spain, and the woke observer, apologize, apologize, right? And what happened next is that most European countries, like England, the Dutch, the Belgians, there's more, but they actually apologized for the colonies. And the left has used this as proof that these countries were evil and did wrong. There was no forgiveness. The left, Agent 3, never wanted to forgive and was never open to forgiveness. They wanted to get entire countries' governments to admit to their crimes and use this as evidence against them, and they've been doing it for 10, sometimes longer than 10 years. There's an exception, though. Let me know in the comments below if you know of another exception. Spain. Spain, of course, had the oldest of the colonial empires, spanning a massive time period of 1492 to 1976. And Spain was ruled by Francisco Franco in the longest lasting fascist regime in human history. If you don't agree that it's fascist, that's fine, but left-wingers, this guy does believe it's fascist. So it's important for this specific example. Spain has refused, the Spanish government has refused every single time they've been asked to apologize for their crimes of colonialism and fascism. The response is fascinating. The left cannot use this against them. In America, and let me know in the comments if you think this is a stretch, but it's something I've noticed. If you have a Spanish last name as obviously related to colonialism as Cortez, for example, you are less likely to be called a white colonizer than if you have an Irish last name, like O'Brien. The irony is that the Irish were the victims of colonialism, and the Spanish did European colonialism first, before any of the other European countries followed suit. I believe there is a correlation here with who said I'm sorry and who doesn't. And as a total sidebar, China, through the Belt and Road Initiative, is currently colonizing Southeast Asia and Africa, and the woke leftist doesn't care. I don't know how they don't, but they don't. This is an oversimplification of the events that have caused the massive trust issue in the West and the United States. We can all think of examples, whether it's at school or at work. One of my jobs, where I'm an accountant, was very corporate, and I witnessed some horrific examples of it. That was bigotry, apologize now, and then going to HR or getting fired, and the thing they'd be accused of was ridiculous. But on the other hand, I saw managers who were sleeping with interns. Now, the intern is over 18. There's nothing illegal happening. But it's still like a 38-year-old and an 18-year-old sleeping together, and then that intern gets a promotion. That person doesn't get fired. But a gentleman who, and I'm not kidding, went on a rant about his favorite type of restaurant and named an ethnicity, because that's what you call in America, that type of food. And he said his favorite ones, and he said his favorite are the ones where you could tell it's family owned. That's how you know it's good food. People went and gave anonymous complaints to HR. And he was fired for saying that he loved Indian food. And he thought the best Indian restaurants were the ones where it was family owned, and going on and on about the best Indian restaurants in town. Now, I worked there, and I could tell you that the reason that happened is because the person who turned him into HR was next in line for his job, and she didn't care that he liked Indian food. She didn't think he was really a racist. She just knew if she got him to say I'm sorry and admit it, he'd get in trouble at this job. And he did. He got fired. Anyway, that wasn't in my script. I thought I wasn't going to say it. I'm afraid of being doxxed, and I hope that didn't work. Back to my script. We have not only seen those who apologize to Agent 1 being backstabbed for it, but we have also seen that if we avoid Agent 1 and raise our defenses and use our freedom of association to avoid Agent 1, the one demanding apologies for bigotry, like Spain, like Spanish people, we will be largely left alone in comparison to how those who apologize are treated. This is a much bigger problem than many woke leftists realize. Many of the leftists are just in denial, but we as a society need to be able to apologize, forgive, and move on. If we cannot, we are going down a path where either we will remain guarded and refuse to cooperate with the other in our country. This is where we are today, by the way. Conservatives, right-wing people, libertarians, other groups on the right, I know there's more names, actively avoid left-wing people and do not want to open up for cooperation with them. Left-wing people don't cooperate with each other. There are radical left-wingers who hate TERFs. Both of them, from my point of view, as a relatively, I don't know, I'm no longer a libertarian. Was a libertarian, now I'm more right-wing. They both seem very left-wing to me. They won't cooperate with each other, and there's many examples of this on the left. The left needs to learn how to forgive. They need to learn that when someone's apologizing in good faith, you need to forgive them. You need to give them the chance to be better. This is not an example this is not a chance for you to gain more power, just tiny crumbs of social power just to hurt other people for it. And the left needs to stop accusing every political, social, or workplace competitor of bigotry as a cheap trick to take out competition or score social points. I'm the Mobius Strip. My dream is a high-trust society. I want to live in one, and I want you to as well. My videos will show current and historic events in the lens of game theory and second-order effects. Come join me and let me know how much you disagree in the comments below. If you have a full-blown argument with someone in my comment section, that will have the second-order effect of the algorithm sending my video to more people. Follow me on X and look at my posts and my many unhinged comments posted when I'm sitting on the toilet at work. Stay safe, find cooperative folks, work hard, play, pray, and relax. I'll see you later.